Hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. Before we start this video, I really want to give a huge thanks to everyone who's been watching, who's been sharing, liking, leaving comments. It allowed me to grow up to 2,000 subscribers. That's something that I really wanted to reach. It was a milestone for me. And that's what keeps me motivated to doing these videos for you guys. I'm really happy that happens. Keep watching, stay tuned because there are more videos to come in the future. I'm planning on doing some live streaming so you guys can come here and ask questions so we can talk about the tools, maybe Mixer or other 3D tools you want to talk about. And yeah, enough of that. Let's just get right into the video. Okay, so in this video, I'm actually pretty excited because a lot of people were asking for this. This is something that's kind of complicated and it's called the RVT blending. That is the Runtime Virtual Texturing blending. This is something that I did on one of the Quixel videos for the Megascans, and there's actually a description of it in one of the blogs. It's a bit complicated to read. It's not very straightforward. So I kind of dialed it down, digested it, and I'm going to show you how to do the very basics of the RVT blending. This is something that has a lot of potential. So I'm going to be building onto this in the future. I'll be doing another video on how to do this RVT blending with some enhancements that get a lot more complicated, but it looks a lot better as well. So for now, what I'm going to show you is how to do this. This is the RVT material. If I go and use the Megascans material that come with this rock pile, if I put it here, you're gonna see that, well, first of all, it's a different color. So what I did is I blended in the color, but what I want you to see is that it has a clear seam. So there's a clear seam that this is another asset that's just intersecting with the terrain. But as soon as we use the RVT blending, you can see that this blends right away. It looks like the asset is just part of this ground. And we can actually see the blending in real time if we move the asset around. There's some parameters that I'm gonna show you how to play with them. And I'm gonna explain a lot on this because it can get really complicated if you don't go over some of the basic stuff. So please bear with me, grab a snack. It's going to be a little bit of a long video, but if you go all the way to the end, I assure you that you're gonna get out of this video knowing the ins and out of the RVT and being able to use it with the Megascans at home. Now, the other thing that everybody was talking to me about in my previous video on blending was, can you do a video on blending with something that that we can use with cast shadows? Well, let me tell you that cast shadows are on this one. And as you can see, it's actually looking real nice. This is the same technique that was in the Goddess. There was a Goddess Quixel demo that they did for real-time ray tracing. This is what the guy ended up using in the end. He did mix a lot of other blending features, which again, I will be doing in the enhancements. So let's get down to the basics of this. All right, here I am. I'm in the same project that I was before, but I am in a new level so we can all start everything from scratch. Okay, let me just do some house cleaning here, get rid of some of these. And we're going to create a simple landscape. So I'm just gonna go into modes, go into landscape. And I'm gonna do a small landscape. You can do whatever size you want. That actually doesn't matter. But I'm just gonna pick a small-ish landscape so it's, you know, not that much. The other thing that I found with this technique is that you have to do a little bit of sculpting or some smoothing in the terrain for some reason. I don't understand. If anyone knows, leave it in the comment below. But when I was testing this, I tested it many times. And if I didn't do anything to the landscape, so if I leave it as a flat plane, this would just straight up not work. So you have to do at least a little bit of sculpting on it. So we're gonna hit create and we're gonna go into sculpt. All right, so now that we're here, one thing that I like to do is go to lights, turn it into movable. So we get rid of that annoying message and let's start sculpting. So I'm just going to do a little bit. Actually, I'm gonna retract my view all the way out. I'm going to increase the size of my brush. If you're working on a smaller section, I would say get a landscape and just sculpt out of the bounds that are going to be inside your game or inside your video, whatever you're working here in Unreal, and smooth it out like I'm doing. That way you don't have hills if you don't want to have sculpt. I actually do want to have some sculpts here, so I'm going to do that. This is another neat trick. It's called erosion. If you do some erosion, you're gonna get this nice kind of like mountainy All right, I think that is enough with the terrain. Now let's get into the RVT material. So I'm gonna go back out of this with select, and I'm gonna create another folder where I can store everything. So I'm going to call it RVT YouTube tutorial. I'm using underscores because Unreal doesn't like spaces. So in here, I'm going to create a material, and we're gonna call it RVT master. Okay, I'm gonna open this material so we can all talk about the Runtime Virtual Texturing. Before we start using the Runtime Virtual Texturing, we need to enable it. So you have to go into settings, project settings, and just type here in the search bar, site virtual, and this will come up. So virtual textures is usually disabled. You need to enable it in order for this to work. If you don't enable it, nothing is going to happen. So make sure you have this checked. Everything else I have left by default, so I have not changed any other values. Okay, now that out of the way, we are going here to look for the runtime nodes. So there's runtime output, and there's runtime sample. So why did I get these two nodes before actually constructing the material? Because this is where the confusion part starts. The RVT is pretty much dependent on these nodes. Everything else is just a basic material. The way that it works is the output is what you are going to be using with your landscape. So this is what's going to determine what are you going to be intersecting with, and this is going to determine what you are doing. So your RVT will be stored here. There's an RVT asset that you need to store into this node. It goes right here, and this will be where the texture and the height are stored, and that way this will know what to do when you intersect those two assets, if that makes any sense. So again, this is where you will be writing your material onto. Pretty much your landscape material will be written onto this node, and this node will output everything onto the runtime virtual texture asset, which again is tied into this node. Okay, hope that makes things a little bit easier for you to digest. All right, to start building the material, the first thing I like to do is turn this into a material attribute. That is done by clicking on this checkbox. It says use material attribute. This will pretty much make everything disappear and make this one single node. Now I'm going to bring in my runtime virtual texture output, and I'm going to leave it down here. Now, in order to start creating this, I'm going to do first a very simple example with just colors, and then we'll dive into the mega scan. So I just want you guys to really understand how this works. So for that, I'm just going to bring in set material attributes. So I'm going to click on set material attributes, right click to get this box. And in here, we can tell it how many material attributes we want. In this case, I just want 2. Base color and roughness. For the base color, I'm just going to hold number 3, click, and this will give me a vector 3 constant. We'll plug it in here. I'm going to do the color red. Actually, the easiest way to do it is this way. Just brought in all the color red. I'm going to hold the key of 1 and click, so I can bring in 1 vector value. And I'm just going to do this to 1. That way we won't have any reflections, because again, it's not the case for this. The second thing that we're going to be using here, and actually I'm going to put these guys back here. Now the other thing that I'm going to do here is the layer blend. When I was testing this, I found that it doesn't work that well without the layer blend. So let's say if you wanted to just use one material for your landscape, if you were doing something very small, what I would do is I would blend two things, I would blend a Megascan and a color, which is what I'm going to do later on when I'm using the Megascan. And that way you'll just have one material. Otherwise, if you want to have two materials in here to blend, you can also do it this way. So I'm going to look for landscape, and we're going to find this layer blend, which if you see my previous tutorials, you know how this works. We just have an array and we just add two elements. So element 1 would be color red. Element 2 would be color, let's say, blue. Now, when it comes to the material blending, I'm gonna gloss over this. I already have a video on material blending. I'll leave it down below if you want to get like a deep dive into material blending, but I'm just gonna go through it real fast. Otherwise, this is gonna be like a 4-hour video. So I'm just gonna plug this in here. And I'm going to go here, copy, paste, and we're going to change this color to blue. So bring the reds to 0 and bring the blues to 1. I'm just going to put this in the blue layer. Now over here, we need to get those attributes in order to distribute them amongst these two nodes. You're going to see how I'm going to do that. So we're going to get material attributes. Now make sure you're doing get, because when I was doing this, I actually did set here and also did set here, and it was weird. It was getting me an error. So make sure the 1 is set before the layer blend. You have set material, and after the layer blend, you have get material. And you're going to see the reason why I'm using this as opposed to the other node is we're going to be doing base color and roughness. And what I'm going to do is this node allowed us to connect over here, and we can also connect these two. The last thing that we need to do here is do a world height, and the world height, we're going to use an absolute world position. With that, just right click here and type world position. This is the one. It doesn't matter. It doesn't say absolute at the beginning. If you actually click it, you're going to see that this is the absolute world position. We're going to get out a node from here. We're going to get out a mask. And we're going to use this component mask. In this component mask, we're going to uncheck R and G, and we're going to check B. Now, why are we doing this? Because what we're doing with these nodes is we're telling the program, okay, you're going to get the absolute world position, and you're only going to be using the blue channel. What is the blue channel here in Unreal? What you're looking here is the Z-axis. That is the height pretty much. So I'm just going to connect this here into the world height. And this material is ready. So I'm going to apply. And we're just going to go into our landscape material. I'm going to throw this in here. It's going to look all black and ugly. And we're just going to go into modes, landscape. And again, I'm just going a little bit fast here. Otherwise, this is going to take a long time. But if you're interested, link in the video description. We're going to do weighted layer blended. Okay. Going to do number 2. Okay. So as you can see, if you want to have just one material, you can just leave it at that. If you want to have more materials, you can paint your other materials. Let's give it a little bit to compile. As you can see, it's trying to blend in between the two, and it's doing some nice purple while at it. So let me just get a little bit more blue. All right, so let's say this is a stylized Martian surface with a little bit of water. It still doesn't make sense, but let's just roll with that. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna get out of this mode, and I'm going to bring in a cube, or let's use sphere. Sphere is better. I'm gonna lock this, and I'm going to make this sphere 5 times the size. Okay, So right now, this sphere is not doing anything but intersecting with our terrain. It's not blending. Now, if I go back into my folder, I'm gonna right click, I'm gonna create another material, call RVT mesh test, this for master. We're gonna go into material and we're gonna create a material for this one. All right, for here, we are actually going to do a couple of things. We're going to bring in another runtime virtual texture node, but we're going to be using the texture sample. Okay, this is the writing one. So this is going to be for the mesh that's going to intersect with our terrain. And we are going to also use a blurb. So just hold the L and this will come up. And what we're gonna do is we are going to, I'll just kind of do the base color. I'm not gonna do the roughness so we don't waste any more time. So I'm just gonna do base color here. I'm gonna plug this base color here. And you're gonna see that it gives us an error. Don't mind that. I'm also going to do a constant 3 vector and I'm going to do the color green. So the color green is going to be the color of our object. Okay, so that's what's going to be in B. So in A, it's going to be the color of the runtime virtual texture. On B is going to be the color of our object. On alpha, we're going to have the actual height. So for that, we're going to need another runtime virtual texture sample. I'm going to put it over here because we're going to do some magic around this part. All right, so what I did is I copy and pasted this little part right here from the other material, just so we save a little bit of time, but don't worry. I'm going to go through this and I'm going to tell you how to get some of these nodes. So let's get started. Actually, let me world height and plug it in here. And again, it's giving me an error. Don't worry, we're gonna fix those errors later on. Now, what are these nodes? Absolute world position, we already talked about. Same with mask B. The reason why we're using mask B is because we are using the Z-axis or the Z-axis, however you want to call it. Now in the subtract, we're going to get a subtract node, and the way you get it is by right clicking. You can type sub and you're going to get that subtract. If not, you can just type the minus on your keyboard and you can get that subtract as well. So you are going to have to plug in the world height into the letter B. Now after that, we're going to get an add node. So just right click, add, it's right there. And we're going to, let me continue with the surface and we'll go back over here. So we'll have another subtract node. If you right click and search for divide, you're going to get this divide node and then a saturate node, which if you right click and look for saturate, you're going to get this node. I'm just making sure you guys know how to get these before we do the actual material. So the other thing that we're going to need is object bounds. The reason for object bounds is we want to tell the program to encompass all of this process into the bounds of the RVT. So we right click, object bounds, and there it is. So there's your node. And all you have to do is plug it into a mask with the blue channel. After that, we're going to do a multiply. We just hold the key of M and click if you want to get that. And we're going to multiply this by the fill height, or you can call it something else. This is just a scalar parameter. So if you hold S and click, you're going to see that you get a scalar parameter. You can name it whatever you want. And the reason for this is so that when we create our instance material, we can change the values ourselves without actually having to come here. So we plug this in here. Then we're going to multiply this times 2. So we get another multiply node, and we change the constant value ourselves without actually creating another node. Then we're going to plug this into the subtract B, and we're going to get another scalar parameter that's going to go into the V of divide. And all of that is going to go into the alpha of lerp. So what are we doing here? What we're going to do here is we're actually going to have to write RVT 2 times. One will be for colors, normals, and all of that. And I'm just talking about the mega scans, it's not right here, but one will be for the actual colors and normals and everything else. And the other one will be for the height. So this RVT right here is going to determine at what height we start applying that blending. That's the purpose of all these nodes right here. And that's why it's going into the alpha of my linear interpolation node. So we have color A mixed with color B, and alpha is just determine how are we going to do that mixing. So as you can see over here, it's actually telling us what the error is. So we have node runtime virtual texture sample. It's missing an input, so it's missing this right here. That's what we're going to create. So I'm just going to minimize this, and I'm going to go into my folder, and we're going to create them here in this folder. So what we need to do is go and right click here, go into materials and textures, and you're going to see here something that's called Runtime Virtual Textures. I'm going to click that. I'm going to call it RVT land test. And I'm going to do another one for the height. So right click materials and textures, RVT land test height. Okay. And if you double click them, let's do the color first. If you double click these, you're going to see that you have some parameters here that you can change. So for this one, we're not going to do any changes, but for the one that has the height, we are going to be changing the virtual texture content from this to world height. Okay, that's the only change we're going to do here. Everything else is the same as default. Save that. And now we can go into our material and we can fill in those errors. So for the top one, which is going to be the color, we are going to do the land test. And for the bottom one, we are going to do the land height. Okay, so as you can see, those errors went away. So apply your material, make sure you save. And what we're gonna do is we're going to add it to our sphere. But first, right click, create an instance. This is what we're actually going to use on our sphere, not this one, because this one, if we double click it, you're going to see that we have some values here. These are the scalar values that we had before, and we're going to be able to mess with them. So I'm just going to leave this right here. I'm going to put this right here, and as you can see, it's already green. Now, it's not doing anything because we are still missing the RVT assets. So let's add the RVT assets here. Look for place actors in your place actor tab, and you're going to type runtime, so you can bring these, and we're going to bring two of them. So we're going to bring one, and it's this little square right here, very small, but it's going to get real big because we are going to tell this to encompass the whole landscape. So we're going to get our eyedrop tool, going to click on our landscape, and we're going to tell it to copy rotation and copy bounds. Okay. So now you're going to see that it looks like any other volume inside Unreal. It's just a bounding box. Now we're going to do a second one, but before we do that, I'm actually going to rename this one to RVT test color. And I'm just going to grab another one, throw it in here. Same deal, eyedropper, pick our landscape, copy rotation, copy bounds. And we are going to call it RVT test height. There you go. Now on these, we need to add our virtual textures that we have over here. So on my height, I'm going to add my height, And on my test color, and if you looked at here, this actually changed, and you can see there's start to blend here. So on the color, we're going to throw in the other one. There you go. And we're going to activate these two. Where's my sphere? This is our sphere, which is intersecting, and you're kind of looking at the blending. Now it's not done yet. We are not finished yet. So you're gonna go and click on your landscape, and we're going to go into the virtual texture, and we're going to add an array element over here. Click the plus button, and we're going to add our land test over here. There you go. Do you see how instantly this changed color? And you can see that this also changed color. What these assets are doing is, imagine that you were on the very top of this landscape, like up on the sky. You had a camera that was pointing straight down, and it's taking a snapshot of that. Sorry, got my tongue in a twist. And that is what's going to be projecting onto our intersecting asset. So this is pretty much how it works. It's really complicated, and I apologize for it being so long, but this is the only way that I found it to kind of simplify the whole process and for you guys to understand how this actually is functioning. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start blending this. Now we got our filled height and we have our blend. So think of our height. If I move this, think of this as how much do we want the height to be. So how much of our asset it's going to be encompassed by the blend. And this is one of the reasons why I'm doing it with these bright colors, because it's easier to look at instead of the mega scans. And now for this, the blend height, what this is the fall off. So right now we have a very, very hard brush. What you need is a soft brush in order for this to blend in a little bit better. So we're going to increase the number. And as you can see, that actually starts fading until we can no longer see that seam there. Now I'm going to bring the height down. Or maybe if you want to decrease the fading all the way down here, bringing the height a little bit. And we are done with our blending. As you can see, this sphere is actually blending with our material. And if we go this way, it starts blending with everything else. And not only that, but the colors are starting to blend. So if you look at here, you're gonna get a little bit of a yellow. And if we bring it over here, you're gonna see that it gets to like an aqua marine turquoise kind of look because of the green and the blue. Now, as you can see, once I explain this whole thing, it's actually very simple how it works and how you can set it up. It's not complicated at all. That is it for this video. What I want to get across was how the RVT works in order for later to apply to the mega scans, but don't be upset. The video is coming right up. I'm gonna post it this week. I'm not gonna make you wait until next week, so you guys can see how to apply everything we've learned in this video with the Megascan surface and with the Megascan 3D assets. Hope you like this video. Please leave a like, share it around, comment down below if you had any errors, any problems. You know, I answer really quickly and I answer all of my comments. This is a good way to test out if you understood the concepts of the RVT, and then later on we will apply it to the Megascans. And that being said, I'll see you in the next video.